What's going on, everybody? Cleepus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you some of my favorite and least favorite things about the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G to help you decide whether or not it's the right phone for you. Now, before we go any further, as always, I do want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, and in case you want to learn more about this phone, I will be linking to several other videos about it in the description, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So my first pro for the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro is that it has NFC. Now, in case you don't know what it is, NFC is the main technology behind contactless mobile payment services. So if you like to use stuff like Google Pay, for example, or really any kind of tap and pay feature, you will need a phone with NFC to do this. Now, at this point in 2023, while it's still not a feature everyone uses, tap and pay is definitely becoming more and more popular, and it's so widely used now that I feel like pretty much every phone in 2023, especially 5G phones, really should have this feature. But unfortunately, in this price range, for phones around $200 or less, while we are starting to see more and more phones that do have this feature, there's still plenty more that don't. So if you are looking for a more affordable 5G phone, and you do like to use tap and pay, then you won't be disappointed with the Revvl 6 Pro. My second pro for the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro is the battery. Now with this phone, we're getting a really large 5000 mAh battery that supports 15-watt fast charging, so when it comes to the battery, I really have no complaints here at all. With such a large battery, I mean a 5000 mAh battery in the US at least, is pretty much the largest battery you can get in a smartphone, so you can expect to get great battery life and longevity here. If you're in a situation where maybe you're not always around a charger, but you still need your phone to last all day, in that case, a phone like the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro is going to be a great choice for you. And with 15-watt fast charging, while of course this is definitely not the best fast charging you can get, in my experience, the charging speeds on this phone are at least decent, so for most people, that's most likely not going to be an issue either. So in general, if you're looking for a more affordable 5G phone and battery life is a main priority for you, then you're really not going to be disappointed with this phone. My third pro for the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro is the storage. Now with this phone, we're getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, so definitely a ton of storage here. Sure, on one hand, compared to a much more expensive device, there are some mid-range phones that have over 256GB, but for a phone around $200, and honestly, with the deals T-Mobile and Metro typically offer, you probably won't even end up paying that for this phone. Getting this much internal storage is honestly a really good deal, so if storage is more of a priority for you, maybe you're constantly downloading stuff like apps, games, and stuff that tends to take up a bit more space, or maybe you just really don't want to worry about running out. No matter what the case may be, if you are looking for a more affordable phone that has plenty of storage, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro is going to be a great choice for you. And again, keep in mind, this phone does have microSD card expansion too, so if you're taking lots of photos and videos, for example, you can always offload that stuff onto a microSD card, and this is going to give you even more space for stuff like apps. So again, when it comes to storage, that is honestly one of my favorite things about this phone. My fourth pro for the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro is the camera. Now with this phone, we got a typical water drop notch front-facing camera. This camera is 16 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. So as far as features go, this phone has pretty much everything, including an ultra wide camera and a macro camera. And while that's not really uncommon in this price range, if you are someone who takes a lot of photos, these are definitely features you're gonna want. And aside from just having a bunch of features, the photo quality is really good too. With a 50 megapixel camera, you can definitely expect to get some real good photos here. So whether you're taking a lot of pictures for maybe social media, for example, or you're just a casual camera user, or you're more of a casual camera user who's really just taking a couple nice photos here and there. Either way, if having a good camera is important to you, then the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro is going to be a great choice for you. In addition to this, for video, this phone has a max recording quality of 2K in the rear camera and 1080p in the front. And in the rear camera, you can also record your 1080p videos at 60 frames per second. So if you're recording a lot of videos, compared to the average entry-level 5G phone, we are getting quite a few options here. So if you're looking for a good camera setup and great photo quality, then you're really not going to go wrong with this phone. And finally, my fifth pro for the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro is that it has wireless charging. This is probably not a feature that many people are actively looking for, especially in this price range, but all the same, for a phone that's not a flagship phone, especially one as affordable as this one, wireless charging even in 2023 really isn't a feature you see every day, and in general, it's always a nice thing to have. So if you do value those extra little features that not every phone has, then again, the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro does actually have wireless charging, so definitely keep this in mind. But now that we've gone over some good things about this phone, let's talk about some potential drawbacks. So my first con for the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro is the processor. Now, don't get me wrong, the processor we're getting here really isn't terrible, and for a $200-something phone, especially for more basic activities, the performance is honestly fine. But since this is technically the more premium version of the regular Revvl 6, I just want to point out that if you do get this phone expecting a performance upgrade from the regular Revvl 6, you are going to be disappointed because they do have the exact same processor, and you're really not going to see a performance difference between the two. My second con for the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro is the kind of old generic design it has. Now on one hand, I know not a whole lot of people, especially in this price range, are really looking for aesthetics, but considering this phone has pretty much the same kind of thicker bottom bezel and water drop notch front facing camera that you see on pretty much every other phone in this price range, I feel like they could have done at least a little bit better on the design here. Now, of course, again, this is only really going to matter so much because at the end of the day, I feel like most people care a lot more about features and performance and that kind of thing. But still, if you are looking for something a little bit more unique and interesting, then just keep in mind, you're really not going to get that with this phone. My third con for the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro is the display quality. Now with this phone, despite having a really large 6.82-inch display with a 20.5:9 aspect ratio giving us a pretty tall and narrow form factor, unfortunately we're only getting a 720p resolution here. And while in my opinion it doesn't really look bad for what it is, if you're really going to be on your phone a lot, doing stuff like watching videos, looking at photos, playing games, that kind of thing, where the image quality is definitely more of a consideration, then just keep in mind even in this price range, you can do quite a bit better. And honestly, finding a 5G phone that has a 1080p resolution is really not that uncommon. So considering that, this phone having a 720p resolution is a bit of a drawback, and if you do want a phone with a really nice looking display, then while the Revvl 6 Pro isn't the worst option, it's definitely not the best either. My fourth con for the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro is the speaker quality. Now if you're not really consuming a lot of content, or maybe you do but you always use headphones, in that kind of situation this is really not going to matter. But that being said, I feel like having a good phone speaker really gives you a lot more flexibility when you're consuming content, and in my opinion, it definitely is something to think about. Now to be fair, the speaker on this phone really isn't terrible, but the thing is, unfortunately, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro, we're not getting stereo audio, meaning that when you're doing something like watching a video, for example, sound is only going to come out of the main speaker and not the earpiece. So as a result, the audio experience is really not going to be nearly as immersive, and in general, it's just not going to sound as good. So if you are consuming a lot of content and you don't always want to use headphones, then this might not be the best phone for you. And finally, my fifth con for the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro is that it can't record 4K videos. Now that's honestly the one downside to this phone's camera because really everything else is great. But if you are constantly recording videos, maybe you're a content creator for example, and you really want to have the best video quality, then again, keep in mind, while being able to record in 2K, this phone can't record 4K videos. So if that is important to you, then you might want to go with something else. But those were my pros and cons for the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G. In general, despite a few drawbacks, for what it is, I do think this is a really good phone, and if you're looking for a 5G device that has decent performance, a ton of storage, a great camera setup, and a large battery, then overall, you're really not going to go wrong with this phone. Now, once again, if you want to learn more about it, definitely check out the description, where I will be linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.